Hey, welcome to another episode of Musician Rewind. We're here today with extraordinary musician and trumpet player Charles Bartlett from Bartlett's Contemporaries. How's it going, Charles?
I'm good, Kevin. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, same. So, like with everybody else, I start with, was trumpet your original instrument, and what did you start on?
Trumpet was not my original instrument. My original instrument was guitar, and poor little guy. I didn't know anything about Elvis's his what can we say? His racist tendencies. So when I saw, I'm in the grade. When I see him talking about you ain't nothing but a hound dog, and how popular he was. Right. I said, "Oh God, I want a guitar. Right. My father got me a guitar, and then I stayed with the guitar for a while. And then my father got me a Gibson. I got a Gibson electric. He got me this beautiful Gibson, and I played it in the band for when the Bartlett Contemporaries started out. I was the guitar player in the band for maybe the first 2-3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I played guitar.
Who was playing bass then?
A guy named unfortunately he's deceased now. A guy named Reggie Williams. We all met each other on and Nancy's sister would remember these folks because we all went to Jackson together. This guy's name was Reggie Williams. We all found ourselves on the track team. We were all of us were very athletic. My brother and I ran track, and then we realized when we got to band class that half of the track team was in the band. So we recognized that all these athletes played instruments, and that's really how the band formed from the track team, because we were so running in meets together, we practicing together, and then we found out we're in the school band. What, you're in the band? Yeah. So that's how Bartlett Contemporaries was actually born. Actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I wound up playing clarinet. I wound up playing clarinet all through high school, except for my last year. I wanted to play saxophone, and band teacher said, "No, you're a first clarinetist. I need you on clarinet." She wouldn't let me play. She would not let me play saxophone, and I got hot, and I decided I'm gonna teach myself trumpet. I couldn't get a hold of a saxophone; it was very expensive. So this band leader, these are stories, man. This cat named Fat Screen. Now, Marcus Miller knows about this guy named Fat Screen because Marcus and I were talking about 2 years ago, and he was talking about some old calypso. Ralph McDonald that wrote Mr. Magic. I think he wrote Mr.
Percussionist.
Yeah, his father, as far as I know, was a guy named Macbeth the Great. Macbeth had a calypso band back in the 50s. I mean, it's like a Duke Ellington type band, but they played calypso. And Macbeth made a lot of recordings, Macbeth the Great. And Marcus, I didn't even know many people knew, but Marcus was hip to him. And Marcus said, "You have records?" I said, "Yeah." And I sent Marcus an email of the 78, so you know how long ago it was.
Right.
And, but Macbeth, the guy that took over Macbeth's band was a guy named Fat Screen. And he gave me my first trumpet because I was a clarinet player. Okay. So this guy, Fat Screen, gave me my first. I went to his office one day with my parents, and I said, "Oh, that's a beautiful trumpet." He said, "You want it?" I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you want it?" He said, "It's been sitting here for 2 years." I said, "Put some oil in it, and it's yours." I said, "Yeah, I want it."
Wow. So now you was around how old when you started with the trumpet?
Let me see. I was out of high. Yeah, I was out of. No. I was in my last year of high school. But I told the band teacher, I said, "Listen, I taught myself trumpet." She said, "Well, you can get in the senior band." I said, "But we'll put you in the band right before that." I said, "But I still need you on clarinet." I said, "Okay, I'll play clarinet and trumpet. Right. I'll play the senior band. I'll play clarinet, first clarinet. And then the band right after that, the junior band or the preparing band, whatever it was, I'll play trumpet." And I got a good background in trumpet, but I still wasn't college material. Right. But over the summer, I just worked hard at it. And the next thing you know, I was I was up to college level, and I was able to get into
so
New York.
you started woodwinds and stuff in elementary school? Is that where you first started?
No, late. I got a late start. I started woodwinds at Wingate High School. I went to Wingate High School for 1 year in Brooklyn. I started that in high school, my ninth grade.
So you was doing all athletics through like elementary?
Yeah, I was running. I was
okay.
running. I consider myself a track runner. I mean, I wasn't, a baseball player or anything like that. But Carl and I used to run track, and we were distance runners. So.
Okay. Yeah. Because I don't know. Do you know the drummer Richard Ruiz?
Yeah, I know Richie. I don't know him well, but
so he ran for St. Clements. When he was in elementary school. Yeah, and he was a sprinter actually.
Oh, okay.
I used to go see him run. He used to be killing them. Yeah. Rich didn't run in sneakers. He ran in his socks. That was so crazy.
Oh God, please.
But yeah, he was a sprinter though. So he killed him, but he wasn't a distance runner.
Yeah, I couldn't. I wasn't no speedster, but I could.
Right.
I could hold out. I ran a mile, and we ran cross country 2.5 miles at Van Cortlandt Park, which was another scene where people used to knock each other down those hills. That was. I mean, you would think that you're running a race, but those teams, we were knocking each other down and throwing each other down. They didn't have anybody watching us.
Right.
And so, and I used to push, if you come from Jamaica High School and you're in front of me, I'm pushing you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. So that's considered late from when you started trumpet, right? Even though you was already playing.
It is considered a late start. And I just had a natural ability for it, but it's considered a late start. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So from high school, when did y'all put Bartlett's Contemporaries together? When did that start?
The band was together early on. We were in high school. Actually, my brother had some guys he was playing, and then he said, he said, my middle name is Rennie, so everybody calls me Rennie. He said, Rennie, we got some guys from the track team here, remember? And I said, yeah. He said, they're coming over the house. And so we started the band, I guess, my first year in college and his last year in high school, my brother's last year in high school.
Okay.
And that's after we ran into Nancy's sister, Debbie, but she was in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's the one that Debbie introduced me to Oliver Nelson. Check that out. Because Debbie knew Oliver Nelson. And when we were rehearsing, Debbie called me up and said, hey, Charles, you want me to Oliver Nelson? I said, of course. I said, when? I said, where's he performing? He said, no, he's at my house. I said, he's at your what? He said, he's at my house now. He said, you all come on and drop your instruments and come on over.
And Oliver Nelson, for those of us like me who are not familiar with that person, who was Oliver Nelson at the time?
Oh, Oliver Nelson is, sorry about that. Oliver Nelson, he was a soprano saxophone player, a reed player. I think he played more than soprano, but he was like the Quincy Jones of that time.
Oh, okay.
He was writing film scores. I mean,
wow.
A lot of the early movies in the 60s, he did a lot of film. He did a lot of the scores for that. He was on a lot of deadlines. I think he died young. He was under a lot of pressure from the studios to complete all these scores, because these are for movies and everything. He was a great film score writer.
Wow.
TV. Some of those early TV shows. I don't know. I can't remember which ones for sure. The early shows in the 60s. Mm-hmm. He wrote a lot of the scores for them. I think J.J. Johnson was on some of his productions, etc.
Oh, okay. So y'all started the band. So when did like Billy Cobham come in?
Okay, so Billy Cobham played about 2 or 3 gigs with us on Vibes because we were playing salsa, we were playing Latin, we were doing that Caljada thing, Caljada, Eddie Palmieri, and all those Latin cats were coming out to Queens, and so we had that Caljada sound because we had a vibraphone player with us, but he couldn't do the gig. And I was talking to Wayne, Billy's brother, and I said, Wayne, we need a vibraphone player. Then he said, well, Billy plays vibes. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, remember, Charles, he's in the Army band. I think Billy was probably about 20, because he's a little older than me. He's about 21. At the time, I was about 18 and 19. But he was in the Army band, I think at the Brooklyn Army base. And he was a full percussionist. You know, you had the timpanis and you know, you're a drummer. Yeah. Right. So timpanis and all that stuff. So he came to rehearsal, he brought his vibes, and he did a couple of Latin gigs with us. And everybody said, Billy Cobbin, you know, he played drums. Right. Unfortunately, he didn't play drums with us. I wish he had. Right. But he played vibes.
Did you know Wayne from school, or how did you know Wayne already?
I knew Wayne. I don't know how. You know, I don't know how I knew Wayne. Just as another trumpet player in the neighborhood. Right. I don't even know how we met. You know, I've known him for a very, very. You know, I guess it's like Jesus, about 50 years. Wow. No, I've known Wayne for a very long time.
Yeah, Wayne's good people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I met him in early 80s. Same time, you know, right around the same time I met Tony Bridges. That's how I met Wayne. Right. Tony Bridges. They was all on the Gloria Gaynor gig then.
Oh, okay. And when did you go? You went on tour with us. When was that? What year was that? You want to?
We did the back-to-back cruises 90.
Oh, it was that late. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But I started playing with y'all right when I was just talking to somebody about him last night. The keyboard player, he was leaving. Meeks.
Oh, Willard.
Right. So it was in the 80s that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Like early 80s. I was doing gigs, but I didn't do any cruises with y'all till later, because then y'all started calling me, because I know Peters, your drummer, had his family reunion the same time every year. So that's usually when I'll end up doing stuff.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember what happened, but yeah, I know you were on it. You were great too. I remember that.
Appreciate that.
You had a white drum set. You had a white drum set.
I had a white Rogers. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that, bro.
Yep. So I was doing that, and usually, so when I did do the cruises with y'all, is when Peters, his family users ran into the same time.
Oh,
because usually he'd be back or leave after.
Okay.
But that particular the year, and y'all had back to backs that year. So we got off one ship and walked right to the next one.
I remember that. We walked right across to the next.
Right, Stanley Turrentine. As the Bowfields on that, Calypso Rose, Ross Ali. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Griner.
Yeah. Griner. Yeah, you remember all of it.
Yeah. That was good stuff.
Yeah. I think we wound up playing basketball.
Yeah.
Like Carlos and Charlie's.
Billy, you and Artie.
Yep.
Sure did. And then on the next ship, I played with Randy.
Oh yeah! Get out.
We were playing some guys that worked on the ship, and we up there playing, and waters was rough. Man, we was all over trying not to fall over upstairs playing basketball until the ball went over the side, and that was it. We was like, well, that's that. But they would only give you one ball a day. So when that one went over the side, that was a wrap.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep. So the early days of Bartlett. First of all, how y'all come up with the name? Like, who decided on that?
Well, we call ourselves the Contemporary. Initially, it was the Contemporary 7, and then we went down to this store on Jamaica Avenue named Gibbs Clothing Store. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Gibbs, and the guy said, "So what do you call yourself?" I said, "Well, we're the Contemporaries." And then he said, just the Contemporaries? He said, but yeah, there could be a lot of groups named the Contemporaries. And then he said, so you all want to differentiate. He was the salesman. He was the owner of the store. Mm-hmm. Then he said, what's your last name? I said, Bartlett. He said, why don't you just call yourself Bartlett Contemporaries? He said, who gets the gigs? I said, we do. He said, who arranges the music? I said, we do. Right. He said, who holds the rehearsals? He said, we do. He said, Bartlett. He said, it's a wrap. Well, that term wasn't out then, but he said Bartlett Contemporaries. So, it was. It wasn't initially that it was the Contemporary 8 or Contemporary 7. over the amount of people we had in the band. But yeah, so he said, just name it after you guys, and it stuck,
Right. So now, were y'all doing like shows like with a lot of the other bands? Because when I met y'all went to the whole club date wedding thing, but when y'all first started, it was more like playing at the clubs.
Yeah, we were doing we were playing places like Club Ruby and St. Albans Plaza and Linden Manor. And then we started doing weddings, and these weddings and bar mitzvahs. And then that's when we really, started playing in the catering house at the Antons, the Cordon Bleu, you name it. Every catering house, around Queens, Brooklyn, New York, all the hotels, all the major hotels. And then we, Stephen Scott, that orchestra.
Yeah.
They ran into us, and we worked for them for a number of years. Maybe 5-6 years, and we played for them. We even did one of their, which a lot of people got pissed off at that, but I said, I can't help it. Stephen Scott called us, the head guy. And Stephen Scott, his name was Stuart White at the time. There were two offices. One was in Manhattan and one was in New York.
Right.
And he said, I want you all to do our office party. He said, you're going to make, some guys are going to be very pissed off. He said, but you all are actually, we got a lot of bands out here. He said, but you all are actually the best band. He said, that's just it. He said, you have a full horn section, or you guys improvise. We had this guy, Carlos Garnett, playing with us, wound up playing with Miles Davis, a sax player. But we had a very strong horn section at the time. And so we wound up playing the Stephen Scott office parties, and we did Christmas party. It was a Christmas party, right? And we worked after that. We got solidified with them. We worked for them for maybe another 2 or 3 years. Worked for them for about 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So, were y'all ever on, like, I see Creative Funk, another band out the neighborhood, would be opening for acts that came to, like, say, RKO and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Were y'all doing any of that?
We did not. We didn't do too much of that. We opened up for the Whispers at a place called Leviticus. And then we, as I told you before, we used to do these Morgan Grambling football games where we were the opening act. We were the opening act for the Jimmy Castor Bunch, Mongo Santa Maria. We opened up for Mongo Santa Maria and Junior Walker and the All-Stars for that. Yeah, we opened up for them in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And that's when they had those plush or custom amps. They had those. They were the columns.
Right.
And they had it was, white. They were like very metallic-y colors.
Yeah, that right. With that puffy twisting. Yeah. That's the first time we saw. That's the first time we saw I think it's custom or plush. I forgot the name of it. Yeah, they actually was two companies. It was a plush and
custom.
Acoustic custom.
Yeah.
They made them, and there was a company plush that was made the same way.
Right.
I think plush had the wild colors though. I think they were like orange.
Yeah. We saw those colors, man, and we walked into Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we had a nice system, but it wasn't as Junior Walker. I mean, they were Motown.
Right.
We had an Altec Lansing system, Lansing, and their engineer was able to put our system with their systems, and they combined the systems. So they said, yeah, you can use our system. And so we opened up for a few people: Junior Walker, Jimmy Castor Bunch, the Manhattan, not the Manhattans, what's the the Whispers. The
Whispers.
Yeah.
Cool. So so when did you move into educating? When did you move into teaching and stuff?
Okay, that's the story. That's the story where we probably could have gone on and done the recording thing, but the Vietnam War was happening. And that's the time when we ran into the Commodores, and their manager wanted to take us along up and down the Eastern Seaboard with them.
Right.
And the Vietnam War was happening. And it was either you, I mean, a lot of my friends went over to Vietnam, Kevin, and never came back.
Wow.
So it was a thing like my father said, listen, we can go up and down the Eastern Seaboard with these brothers from Tuskegee and have some fun. And, but the war's going on. 3 of your friends came back in a pine box. He said, I suggest you go to school, get your degree, and teach, because if you were teaching back then, you were exempt from the war. You didn't have to. You did not have to serve.
Right.
So, to be quite honest with you, that's what I decided to do, and the rest is history, as they say. We.
And you started where? Your first teaching.
My first teaching gig was at an elementary school, 134, and then I taught at Andrew Jackson I taught at Andrew Jackson for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Then I went to elementary school. And then I went to, most of my time was spent at junior high school, 192. That's when I ran into people like Jerry Brooks. They were my students then. Jerry Brooks, Camille Gaynor, and all of them. Yeah, so that was at 192, IS 192, or junior high school 192.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so you always taught there? Did you go to Jackson teach?
I taught at, I stayed at 192 for a very long time. And then I went, and then I took a leave of absence. That's when the band really started working a lot. And I had to take a leave. I said, it's either the band or teaching. And I took a leave of absence. I took out my pension and took a leave of absence for about 3 years. And the band started playing a lot. And that's when we ran into Oprah Winfrey, because we wound up playing for her, and we wound up playing for Spike Lee. And but it was at that time that I took that leave that the band was really, really cranking up. So I couldn't teach and play at the same time. It was just beginning to be impossible. So I took a leave for about 3 years and did that. The band got real popular, and I went back to teaching, and we still, remain playing. Still we're playing, and we're doing a lot of, catering house club dates.
Right. Did y'all ever record any original stuff?
Yeah, you know what? We did do some original music, and we had a great singer with us. And it just never happened. We did a thing over at SIR Studios, and a lot of people were there. Don Ina from Columbia Records. A lot of people came down, and we had a girl with us, and she didn't have the look. She had the voice. She did not have the look they wanted, and because we were ready to do some things for Columbia Records, but it just didn't happen.
Wow.
Just didn't happen. I can tell you a story, but I'd rather not tell you. I'll tell you privately. Right. Because there was a person there that we could have been recording right now. And this person I had to tell you privately, but this person could have put us over, but they didn't. Because one of the guys, Don Ina, from Columbia, he said, so-and-so, what do you think of these guys? And he said, they're another group with horns, Right. But we were killing. We were doing our own arrangements. Like some of the tunes that these other groups had out, we were doing our own arrangements on them. Right. And this guy, who already had a recording contract, he didn't want us anywhere around. I'll be honest with you. And I'll tell you that off of this. Right.
And I knew that stuff happens even like on shows. If a band come on too strong and there's a name act, you're not gonna be on the show with them no more. These guys are not opening for us again.
This guy would not, because Don, I remember, I don't know if you know the name Don Ina, but he was one of the big wheels at Columbia Records, and he asked the guy, he said, "What do you think?" And the guy, Joe, the singer Joe Tex was even at this thing. Okay. Tell you how long ago. And this guy, just the way he came out, he just said, "Yeah, they're another good band with horns, like, so what? There's a couple of bands." Right. But like I said, I'll tell you later.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. So now you went on, you taught at Floyd Flake School, right?
Yeah, I did. I taught at the Allen School, for many years.
Oh, okay.
Many years. His son is an excellent drummer.
Yeah, I was. There's a drummer I came up with. He went to Martin though. Carl Smith. We were talking about him last night. He said, because last I had known was what's the drummer? Who's the drummer? Jeff. Yeah. Jeff was there, and he was like, "No, man."
He
He said,
passed.
"Jeff."
He passed, right?
Did he?
Passed. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he passed. I mean, this was even before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
He passed. Yeah, he passed about 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. And he told me his son was playing there now. Flake's son.
Yeah, but Rashid, his son is good. Rashid is good.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, so any other stories you got from back then that was like the 70s was a great time. For me coming up and being able to watch the bands, the older guys, I from my side of town, you had the Palmer Brothers was a few blocks from me.
Oh yeah, I heard of them. Sure.
Of course, Creative Funk, because I lived across the street from the drummer, from Rich.
Creative Funk. And the Firebolts.
Firebolts, right. I never got this. I knew of them. I heard recordings of them. I never saw them play.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah, Winky's group and Wayne Corbin had a group. I forgot called Juice.
Oh, that was Wayne's group. Okay, I heard of them.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was his group, but I know
but he was in that group. I know Tony Bridges talked about the board of directors. I told him, I said, yeah, I remember them.
Yeah.
I never got to see them. He talked about them a lot. So there
was another group out here, Mother Night. Remember Mother Night?
Mother Night. Okay.
Val Burke, the bass player, played with them. Val Burke.
Oh, okay. From it is from 5 Steps. That Burke?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. His name is Val Burke, an excellent bass player. But he played with a group called Mother Night, and had this tune out called "Send Your Roaches to June."
Oh, right. Yep, I remember that tune.
That was Mother Night. Yeah.
But then they had what was it, Midtown TNT out in the neighborhood?
Yes.
What's that? Area Code. Were y'all familiar with them?
Area Code. Woo!
Yeah.
They were bad.
Yeah. Mark Bass, the bass player, his brother was in that band.
Yeah.
I think his brother was a horn player. But
Area Code. Yeah.
It was so many. And, then the bands that were around my age, it was me and my friends was Glenn Gibson and them.
Glenn plays with us back and forth every now and then.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he plays guitar. Artie White is our regular guitar player.
Right.
But Glenn Gibson plays plays with us every now and then. Yeah.
Yep. So didn't you do your own project at one time?
I was doing a project, but I never really finished it. And I'm doing some solo work now. I'm getting ready to do something. I was doing something with Jerry Brooks. He wrote a tune for me.
Okay.
Omar was even helping him out because I was over there with Omar and Jerry. Right. So hopefully I'm praying that by the end of September, the beginning of October, I'll be able to get it out because it's a smooth jazz, Rick Braun type thing, some smooth jazz stuff.
Oh, that's great, man. That's what's happening. I mean, as much music as I do, a lot of times I do my own stuff. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's smooth jazz. I always get somebody to feature on it. So
I did a tune by the Isley Brothers. I recorded "Living for the Love of You."
Okay. Right.
Willis' brother produced it, and it sounds like anything else that's out there.
Right.
Sounds good. I just gotta finish it.
Right.
Just gotta finish it.
So Omar never played with y'all anytime, did he?
Oh yeah, he did.
He did. Okay, Omar King. Right.
Oh yeah, that's a story. That's another little story because I was at the Village Door one night, and I said, "Man, I got to get a drummer." His father played trombone, Hassan.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I said, Hassan. I said we were jamming at the Village Door. We had a jam, and I was playing down there that night. And I said, I got to get a drummer for this weekend, man. And he said, my son plays. But I said, your son? But Omo at the time was 13, and I was like, I think I must be about 5 or 6 years older than him. I was like 18, and I said, your son? I said, but he's a kid, ain't he? And then his son said, yeah, but Charles, what? I said, really? So he said, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll bring him to your gig. I'll bring his set down. He had this blonde drum set.
All right.
And he said, I'll bring him to your gig. He said, and if you don't like him, you don't have to pay. You know, he said, you don't. Man, Omar came out there and knew all them James Brown songs we knew, and he knew everything. He knew everything. He was playing his butt off. That's 13 years old. Wow. I was like, oh my God, you know, where did this person come from?
Wow.
And he did a couple of gigs with us after that.
And that's the one thing I would say about the legacy of part of it, Bartlett's Contemporary, is y'all gave so many of the younger cats a chance. Like a lot of people got to cut their teeth, not just playing one type of music, because with y'all we had to know a bunch of styles. In order to play with y'all. And so I gotta say, for me, it was definitely a learning experience, and getting to play with people of y'all magnitude, for me being at that age to come up, with y'all being that season. And I later on I met so many people that had been through y'all band.
Okay.
And I was like, Bartlett, then that, basically that was the, we was cutting our teeth with them. That, and that is a legacy of y'all band, of y'all was helping, so many young musicians before they went out there.
I mean, we saw a lot of time. I guess you like the Art Blakey band, band of funk or club days. Yeah. I mean, Bernard Wright even did one or two gigs with us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took him to some cassettes and he learned all the tunes, and he did a couple of gigs with us.
Right. And it was a discipline, because a lot of the cats could already play, but it was so much more that you had to know, especially the discipline of playing in that environment. And
coming to the gigs with a uniform, with your shoes looking a certain way,
right.
Your clothes looking a certain way, and not like you just roll out of bed.
Right. That and but like musically, dynamically, musically and dynamically, you just couldn't be playing just anything. It was like you got to play the music, but yet be tasty too, because it wasn't wasn't like you was reading charts or nothing, But you had to have that feel, but. It was, it was just like, I know a lot of guys who might not have been able to cut the gig because either they would be too busy or just wouldn't understand the dynamics of it. Or
and that was a thing where, like, I know, like with the horns, I used to if you had 3 or 4 horns, I used to hear a lot of bands, and I said, well, why would they have 4 horns that everybody's playing in unison?
Right.
Or only 2 parts. I said, like chords you can make a chord. If you got 4 horns, you got the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th. I said, there's a lot of things you can do with 4 horns. And so I used to love to, it wasn't written, but I would just say, okay, you play that, I play that.
Right.
And, and so I used to really like to have the horns, a lot of stuff breaking up in harmonies. Mm-hmm. And that was a part of a sound that I really liked to have with my horn section anyhow.
Right. And I think that separated a lot of the bands even later on, because y'all the ones that still had horns. Because going further into, I would say, from leaving the 70s to the 80s, a lot of bands stopped using horns and used keyboards instead.
Yes.
That wasn't a Latin band. The Latin bands that I saw always kept that. And that was always the difference in the sound to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a big difference.
That was a big difference in the sound. I was like, I get the synth horns. I like them in funk music, but nothing replace a real horn section. It's just the life that it brings to whatever's going on. It's definitely a different sound.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I said, why you think Prince always kept live horns? With all them synths, you can't replace the sound of the live horns. It's just a different a different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So what I wanted to ask you about, because I never got to, it wasn't a place I got to hang, was the door.
Yes.
And
I hung there for a lot.
Right. So that, I didn't even, not until I started playing and sensing, a lot of the cats, Steve Taylor, like my age, was talking about the door. But, I realized that place had been there long before I met them, because I lived in the area.
Right.
So, I mean, that was like a big jazz thing, right? The door.
Big. I mean, all the cats from Basie's band used to come down there.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Manhattan proper was like the modern day version of the door.
Okay.
That's what I compare it. But at the door, man, you had people like Ernie Wilkins. He used to range for the Count. I think it's the Count Basie band or the Duke Ellington band. His name was Ernie Wilkins, a tenor sax player. Then you had Richard Williams, a trumpet player, one of the first black cats that played on Broadway. Mm-hmm. Richard Williams, he was playing in the Wiz when the Wiz first came out. He was the trumpet player in the Wiz.
Okay.
Richard Williams, and so a lot of jazz cats, when they were home off the road, would come down and sit in. And I learned a lot from listening to some of the older cats. Just coming there and sitting down there, and I didn't play all the time. Sometimes I just sat and listened.
Right. Now, do you know if a lot of those cats were living in the neighborhood? Because that section of Queen Alley Park where Count Basie and James Brown and all of them.
Some of those cats were living like in the neighborhood. Ernie Wilkins was a horn player. He was living in the neighborhood. At the time, the Heath brothers were even living. I never saw them in there though. But the Jimmy Heath and what's the Percy Heath?
Right.
Yeah. But they were living out here.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I talked to Tony Bridges, the bass player, he said they was always at his house. And so he didn't live that like right outside of Rochdale, he said.
Yeah.
So he lived somewhere in that area over there. He said they were always over there. Yeah. And again, until he told me that, I had never heard that. Like I didn't know that the Heath brothers lived there.
Yeah, the Heath brothers lived out here, and I'm trying to see who else. Let's see. I just remember Ernie Wilkins, the Heath brothers, and that's all I really, really remember that lived out here. Yeah. Yeah.
So great. So hey man, we're gonna if you got anything else you want to tell me, any stories?
No, I mean, just that Queens has been, all I can say is that Queens has been a really fertile ground for my brother and I to have really sort of like practice our craft and really, lay down something, the band, rehearse the band. And it was just a melting pot of musicians. And I mean, that's where my nephew got his start. He's an excellent player. He wound up opening up for Wynton Marsalis and, years ago. And he's doing his own project now, Serene New Sax. He's restorative music, but he's an excellent jazz. Put out 2 CDs already.
Yeah. It was funny when I saw him. I was like, the last time I had saw him before I saw that he was playing, because he wasn't even playing last time I saw him, was on Nick Cruz. I think he was 12.
Yeah.
I think he might have been 12 years old. And so when I saw him playing sax, I was like, wow. I said, wait a minute. He must have started right after. I said, because
he started.
I listened to how good he was. And I was like, man.
He was studying with me. He studied with me for about 2 years. And I just, taught him, his scales and whatnot. Taught him how to use a diminished scale. I said, well, you use a diminished scale off of a dominant 7th chord, it'll work. And I said, when you hear a dominant 7th chord, then you can use a diminished scale. So I was teaching him stuff like that. So by the time he got to high school, he could improvise.
Yeah, he was killing when I heard it. I was like, whoa. It's like, wow. I said, man, he definitely grabbed the Bartlett talent.
Yeah, he took it and went some, man, because he and I played together a lot. I mean, over. We do a lot of jazz hits together.
Yeah, I see some of the clips when he be posting. I follow and see that, and I was like, wow, he's really good though. But that's cool that y'all get to play together.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love it.
I think now Carl still play at all?
No, he hurt his shoulders years ago, about 7, 8 years ago. Hurt his shoulders, and he didn't have full range of his hands or of his arms, so it was hard for him to play. So he really does all of our logistical work, paperwork and take care of our contracts, and he does an excellent job with that. But unfortunately, he's not playing at the moment.
Well, I know he's proud. The last gig I was on, I think when y'all had Dave doing sound, I came in because he had to play, so I was just watching the board, and his son was playing then in the band.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that must be great playing with his son. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Nice feeling.
Yeah, that was a while back. But all right, Charles, we're gonna end it here.
Man, this has been good. I enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and, definitely. Go ahead.
I know. I'm just hoping that anybody that hears this or sees this, that parents, can just talk to their principals and get music on the whole back into the schools. That's been something. My brother and I started a 501c3 foundation a couple of years ago. Okay. And we were trying to get a concert going. It didn't come off this summer. I guess there were a lot of COVID stuff going on. We just couldn't get it off the ground. But we're really trying to see if we can help get music back into the schools, because that's where we got our start, in the schools. That's what my nephew got his. It was in the school. Well, we started him, but I mean, he was able to continue it because they had music in the schools. Right. Had bands. You don't have any bands in element except out on the island. You don't have any elementary schools that have bands. Right. Anymore. It's just they just don't have it.
Yeah, I know when my kids were in, it was cut so bad that they had basically a music teacher that had to teach at about 4 different schools. Yeah. Which meant that they was getting banned once a week. Yeah. When they could be there. So I was like, wow, that's terrible, right? I was like, that's right before they getting ready to get rid of it. And exactly. The arts are so important. Because I remember we was in school when the budget cuts was starting to happen then. Yeah. They hadn't cut music, but they was getting rid of a lot of stuff already. A lot. Like here in Philly, Philly's a big arts place. They really do that. I don't know if they have. I haven't seen where they're cutting anything. Well, no, that's not true, because I just saw that last year where they were starting to cut funding to the arts, and there was a big uproar over it, which it should be, because they already know that's the start of some bad times. The kids are already like in the streets now, and to cut the arts, we all know what happens when that happens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And a lot of things we start to see is not, are purposely done in certain areas. Funding is cut in certain areas. Like you said, you go to other areas and they got facilities that look like, they work for a film company. Yeah. And then, they got top of the line stuff. And right in another neighborhood is like, yeah, my grandfather used to use these same instruments at this school.
Yeah. We walked into schools and seen my brother walked in. He was doing some sub teaching right before COVID, and the piano that he used to teach at the school. He said, "What happened to the piano?" Said they chopped it up. What? Wow. Chopped it up. Literally chopped it up. Literally.
Wow. So, I see some of them. Some of them. I'm not against them teaching today's. Like they're using. Like a lot of them are doing the digital. They're teaching digital because it's here. They need to know it. But you should never get rid of a natural instrument.
Yeah, acoustic instruments. Yeah, right. Really. Yeah.
Right. You have to keep teaching that, because there's a discipline to that. You can't get good unless you practice. So just putting that time and effort into the instrument, and like I said, the digital thing is cool for them to know that, but it's almost doing the work for you. You
Yeah.
know, I know because I use the stuff. So I know it's like, yeah, but I can already play. So
Right. That's right. That's right.
that's the difference. If this is where you started, once I pull
Right.
the plug on you, you can't make music no more.
That's right. I remember when you went. I remember when you were going to. Let me see. I keep on wondering about this. I want to ask you a question now. You were going to Japan. Weren't you going to Japan? Was it Japan?
Mm-hmm.
You were doing karaoke over there. You were doing.
No. We playing live bands.
Oh, I thought you were doing karaoke. I thought you were like.
Mm-mm.
I thought you were in the studio recording karaoke. That's what I thought.
Oh no, that. Yeah, I did that, but we did that right in Manhattan.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
When we were doing that, the company was out of Japan. They was work. They had a contract with Sony, so we were doing that. We were doing the music for the Sony stuff that for their thing for karaoke. So the CDs that's what it was.
We were doing some karaoke stuff, but you were on the ground floor of that.
Yeah. You know Ollie Cotton, engineer.
I know Ollie. Yeah.
Ollie, right. Ollie brought me into that.
Oh, okay.
And because at the time I was playing for an artist that he was working with, Bethany Wild. Okay. And she was doing like alternative pop type stuff. So we was doing places like CBGBs and stuff like that. And he brought me in there because he was one of the early ones. And there was I can't remember her name. There was a sister in there who the coordinator was working. She was trying to grab as many brothers as she could to pull them in. Wow. She said, I see what's going on in here, and there's money to be made. So that thing was she trying to pull as many of us as. Nice. So he was like, nice. Jimmy Douglas, one of the engineer. I don't know if you know of him.
No.
Top of the line dude. I mean, he goes back to like a lot of the Atlantic Aretha Franklin recordings.
Oh wow.
And he's a master engineer. He's up there like where Bruce Sweden was. And I got to work with him in there. And the thing about that particular thing was a lot of the engineers they hired actually recorded the records we were doing.
Wow. Oh, okay.
So I can't remember the engineer's name. I was doing a Helen Reddy song, Angie Baby. And he actually was the engineer on that. And so he told me how Steve Gadd was playing his cymbal. Because I was listening, I was like, he's not using the tip. He said, yeah, Steve Gadd always uses the fat part of his stick. Oh. And because their criteria was they wanted it to sound exactly like the record.
Yeah.
So again, the discipline in that of being able to hear and know what somebody's doing, because all the other stuff was on the engineer as far as reverb and that stuff, but I had to hear how things were being hit.
Right.
And I got to, work closely with them, and I tried to learn everything I could from them. Yeah. And they all had their own opinions of things. And I would ask them what you think is the best mics for drums. You pretty much wouldn't get the same answer all the time, because they had their preference.
Right.
But
sure.
It was definitely a learning experience. But
I remember that. Yeah.
And I told him, I said, well, this works right up my alley because this is how I learned anyway, listening to records.
Yeah. That's right.
So I said, I have no problem doing this. This is how I learned.
That's how most of us learn, man. I mean, I didn't start taking lessons until I got into college. That's when I first started studying the trumpet with a trumpet teacher from the New York Philharmonic. I mean, he's the one that showed me some basic fundamentals. But then I also have to give credit while I'm on it. I also have to give credit to this great jazz musician that I studied with for about 8 or 9 years, Jimmy Owens. I don't know if you know the name.
Yeah, I heard the name. Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Owens played with Count Basie, but he's an excellent player. But it's sort of when Wynton and them came along, Jimmy didn't get the recognition, because Jimmy is a little older than me. Jimmy is about 78, but excellent player, and he's the one that actually taught me how to play scales, man. I thought I knew how to play scales coming out of freaking college. I thought I knew how to play scales. He said, listen to me play a scale. Check this out. He said, I'm gonna record you playing your major scales. And he recorded me. And then he played him and he recorded himself. And And he said, now you went to college and you studied and you play your scales. He said, Charles, you play your scales well. He said, but the difference is that he said, it says some of the fingerings, he said, like between C and D, he said, you're a little slow. He said, that's a hard fingering. C and D. You got to press the pointer finger down and the ring finger down at the same time. They have to go down exactly the same time. He said, how do you practice that when European classical teachers, and I checked this, European classical teachers tell you, practice your scales. He said, how about practicing the sections of the scales that are the most difficult so that you can get them completely even? He said, CD, CD. He said, it's a long, tedious way to practice scales. He said, but in the end, he said, if you can put that time in, he said, your playing is going to be a lot more fluid. And he said, like you hear the difference between you and I. He said, you can hear the difference. I said, yes, I can. And he said, that's it. Because he taught me how to play. He taught me how to practice, man.
Wow.
Jimmy Owens taught me how to practice scales and practice, just the difficult parts of the scale where your fingers slow down a little bit. Your ring finger is the slowest finger on your hand. So he said, so why don't you do an exercise with just your ring finger and then help it to catch up? That'll help it. And he master at that. Master.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell you, man, music is a great thing. It's a great thing to know.
A lot to it.
Yep. But all right, Charles, we're gonna end it here. I want to thank you for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yep, no problem. Okay, thanks for joining us for another episode of Musician Rewind. We're gonna check y'all in the next one. All right, be safe. All right, Charles. Thanks so much now.
Out.